Yeah.
That's a big one, dude. That's a giant one.
There is one with him still.
Yeah, I saw it.
Get the net. Oh.
I don't want to get. I don't want to get to. All right. Yeah.
Chasing man, you show us how to perform. Well, your style's been changed because we're so vain, but you'll take a sunset for stone. Look out, honey, you're bad, bad, bad. Here you come, said you're bad, bad, bad. Sing for a time, you're the hottest ticket in town. Well, you show us new moves, cause baby, you're smooth, you're above us.
Well, get those live vests zipped and clipped, strap down those rods, and stash away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bass Wranglers Podcast. I hope this episode finds you with 5 for 25 in your live well. I'm your host, Keith Nicewanger, and today we're going to be talking to REDCREST champion Bobby Lane. But first, if you like the content we produce in this channel, please hit the subscribe button, ring the notifications bell, and leave us a comment if you're so inclined. As you know by now, we are the Western representatives for ducket fishing. Ducket fishing is coming to the West. You know these guys, the strongest pro staff in all professional tournament fishing. Ducket's building a Western presence, and if you haven't seen it yet, you soon will. Find out about the Ducket lineup of pro-driven products by going to their website, www.ducketfishing.com.
Change. It's inevitable. To improve, you must adapt. The sport is evolving. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change of basic concepts. Don't get left behind. Introducing Paradigm. Paradigm Reels by Ducket Fishing. Pro-driven.
REDCREST 2022. Such a great outdoor expo. Congratulations to the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma for putting on just an absolutely amazing event. So many vendors. So many people getting out. Getting back to normal. I got to spend some time in the ducket fishing booth at this show. This was my first outdoor show since before COVID, and it was really nice to get back to talk to people. Everyone stood on the same common ground, a love of fishing and the outdoors. It was a really neat experience.
Moonshine, whiskey, and rye. Step into my boots and I head for the door. Gonna live a few hours for and die a few more. When loving.
Oh yeah, there was also a bass tournament going on with $300,000 on the line. Our guest today is one of the top pros in all of professional fishing. He's had a very distinguished pro career on 2 major trails. He's got a couple of major wins on the BASS Elite Series. He's qualified for 12 Bassmaster Classics, and he's earned nearly $1.5 million on the BASS side. On the Major League Fishing Tour, he has 6 wins. He's appeared in all 3 REDCREST championships and has earned over $2.5 million on that tour. And speaking of REDCREST, he's the champion of REDCREST 2022. Bobby Lane, welcome to the Bass Tour Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us today.
Man, thank you for having me. And this doesn't get old, I'm telling you. I'm wearing my REDCREST shirt and just reliving it. I had a few interviews this morning, and it's just like every time I do one, it brings back that memory of that fish weighing 2 pounds on the final reweigh.
We'll get to that a little bit later on, but that was the story there. We tracked you down today in Texas. You're at Lake Palestine for the Bass Pro Tours Heavy Hitters event. First of all, thank you for taking time out in that event to talk with us. I think that's pretty rare.
Hey, man, my pleasure. Yeah, the good one little thing about Major League Fishing is in between rounds, if you get the right pick, sometimes you get a day off, and today was my day off. So it's nice to be able to do this. I wouldn't have missed it for the world. And Texas is windy this right now. Boy, let me tell you, it's a trailering event, and we're allowed to go to any ramp we want. And it has been howling out here, but the fishing has been a little stingy. But if you do find them, they bite, and they bite quick. So it's been a good day yesterday for sure. I got myself in second place. I got to be in the top 8 after tomorrow. Got a little bit of a cushion there, but I want to work hard.
It looks challenging. You mentioned it's pretty windy, but you got a little something figured out. That'll be exciting the rest of the week to watch that.
Yeah, I hope so. I got myself in good shape to try to make that knockout round on Tuesday. The weather's changed every single day. It literally blew 20 to 30 in practice out of the northwest with gusts up to 45. And now today it's completely switched. It's blowing 20 to 30 with gusts up to 45 out of the south. So, welcome to Texas. But I did. I had a fairly good practice, and I went back and hit a lot of those spots yesterday, and some of the fish were still there.
That's good. REDCREST 2022. What an event. I got to go and be part of the expo. It was pretty exciting to see all that. And of course, they had you guys up on the monitor the whole time. You guys were greeted with cold, rising off-color water. Were the conditions at Grand Lake what you thought they would be? Most people I talked to were a little shocked by it.
Well, when I put my boat in the first morning of practice, water temp was 45, 46 degrees, and some pockets stayed 47, 48 degrees. I mean, it was cold, and for it to be spring already was announced when we were there. It was not what I expected by no means at all.
So given that, because like I said, I talked to a lot of people and they were like, well, this is way off from what it normally is. And given the fact that you're looking at 45-degree water in the spring, how did you go about pre-fish? Where did you start? What were your thoughts?
Well, I started on the main lake cranking riprap. What I love to do with that Fritz Side 5, HD brown was the color I chose. And I did that the first day of practice all the way up till 12 o'clock without a fish. And I finally caught one. And then I said, well, they're not out on the main. Maybe they're towards the backs. And that's when I started getting keyed in. I was just throwing that Fritz Side 5 around the backs of the pockets in the last rock from Duck Creek, Drowning Creek, Honey Creek, Horse Creek, all the way up past Wolf River towards the Elk. I mean, I covered a lot of water in the 2 days I was there and tried to make the best of everything. But, it might have looked easy, but it wasn't. But the Fritz Side 5 made it easy, man. That is a phenomenal crankbait. Early spring, shallow water. It just doesn't make a better bait than that.
Is that kind of a general rule for you in pre-fish is to get started with a crankbait on a cover that you like to fish just to see what direction the fish are moving?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of a jerk bait. I love our jerk baits, our stunted jerk baits, but I'm not a huge fan of jerking. I've always kind of said if it's a rocky lake somewhere, some way, somehow you can catch them cranking. And my concern was, can I catch enough? I was catching some good ones, so I felt good about making, maybe the first round or whatever, but I didn't know how far I was going to make it. But but I was catching some fish, and the weather projection was warm. And then the night after the second day of practice, we had a huge rain, and I had no idea it took 2 days for that water to rise, because it actually comes from up towards the Elk River and whatnot, and it flushed down, and the water just kept coming up and up and up. And I mean, it was you know, you add it up, you get warming temperatures and rising water on an early spring lake, and things are subject to change.
Yeah. I think change is the way you would classify that event. So pre-fish is ended now. In your mind, how are you going to attack it? Because after what you've experienced?
Yeah, my goal was to cover. Once I got to the boat ramp, my first day of the event, it was nothing but the Fritz side. I mean, I had no plans to do anything else, and it worked to a T. I started in the back of Duck Creek. I then went over to Drowning Creek. I then ran to Woodard Creek. I then went to Horse Creek. I went to Honey Creek, and then I ended the third round up north of Wolf Creek, and I ended up in 6th place after the first day with like 26 pounds, and had a nice cushion over the top 20. So, you know, took the pressure off a little bit, and I was excited to get back out there. Of course, had a day off and relax a little bit with my family, and I was excited, but ready to maybe just do some looking around, knowing that I had a good shot at making the knockout round by just chunking that Fritz side around. It didn't seem to matter where you went. You just needed to be around rock with some transition in one of those creeks, and you could catch a couple of fish.
You know, it's interesting because sometimes these major league fishing events, the score tracker, it just lights up and it's consistently going and moving. But there was not a lot of movement on score tracker. There was, like you said, I think did you have 8 keepers on the first day?
Yeah, I think I had 8 the first day, and then you're right, that score tracker the second day really didn't do much. I ended up catching 4 for 9 pounds, got myself well inside the cut. They came and pulled my camera, which was a great sign, knowing that I was probably already into the knockout round. So yeah, I just kind of went and fished that day. I went back up north of the Wolf Creek boat ramp there, and noticed that water had gotten really muddy, and there was a lot of trash in the water. And when you have early spring, you got a lot of leaves on the ground, and when the water rises, the leaves float back in the ground. So I tried to keep myself around bluff walls and rocks that didn't have the leaves on them, so it was easier to cast that Fritz side down the bank. And that's what I did the second day. I eliminated Duck Creek and north of Wolf Creek, so I kind of had, you know, on the knockout round, I was well prepared and knew what I needed to do.
Yeah. So the second day of your qualifying, then the 4 fish was not particularly because it got tougher. It's more that you were kind of trying to expand your water.
Yeah. You know, I started in the back of Drowning Creek, and then I ran to Woodard Hollow. I caught 2 back to back, felt really good about it. And then just kind of went fishing the rest of the day, went north up there and saw how muddy it was. I ended up catching 2 up that way, so that helped, and felt real comfortable. Wasn't real concerned about getting knocked out. I think I ended up in 8th place in that second round. Right at the end of the day, I caught a 2-1 or 2-2 that got me from 10th place to 8th place, which actually gave me Friday off, which I really needed after 2 hard days on the water.
Well, so then in the knockout round, you were pretty well dialed in there. You reconnected and knew more about what you wanted to do. Let us know a little bit about how that knockout round went.
Yeah, so the knockout round, you know, rumors were going around about guys bending hooks in, guys laying off fish. I mean, you know, the general norm, and I tried to put all that behind me. I knew I had one job to do, and that was throw that HD Brown Fritz side 5 and keep myself in the strike zone as long as I could. I started in Woodard Hollow. Actually, I started in Drowning Creek in the knockout round, and I didn't catch one in there, and I ran to that Woodard Hollow and caught one in there, a 2-pounder, got me going. And then I was going to go, I ran over to Horse Creek. I made a quick stop before there, caught another 2-pounder, and you know, I felt myself in the top 5. There was only 10 of us, and I don't think I ever left the top 5. I went into Horse Creek late in the first period, and I caught a 4-4 and a 3-13 in a matter of about 15-20 minutes, and that got me up into, you know, 2nd, 3rd place, and I felt real good about it. and caught that 313 with like 10 seconds to go in the first period. So, you know, going into the second period, ventured into Drowning Creek towards the end of the second period. Back where I started the very first day, I caught a 5-pounder in there and a 4-pounder the first day. I went in there and caught a 3.7 and then a 3.12 on the buzzer at the end of the second. With literally a second to go, I got that fish over the gunnel, and then third period started. I went across from Drowning Creek and caught 2 on back-to-back cast, got myself up to 27 pounds and change. I was in like first or second, and I felt really good about my chances of making my first championship in a REDCREST, and just kind of went practicing after that. Didn't key in on a lot, but no other boats were back there, and I felt like, you know, that was going to be the place that I needed to put all my eggs in one basket. You can, if you're trying to run around with that score tracker, it gets ticking on your head. And yeah. I advanced into the championship round, finished 4th place in the knockout round, and then the day begins, man.
The championship round started out like it was going to be a offshore live optics type day. The guys that were catching them early, they were looking at their feet. It looked like they were watching their monitors. How did that final morning go for you? That's not what you were doing, was it?
Nope. I started with the Fritz side 5, just like I always did. I went right down the bank. I caught the very first fish of the championship round. It was a 3.3. Went in a little bit of a lull there, caught another one about 2 pounds, you know, and fell all the way down to 7th, 8th place, and didn't do much in the second period. It was towards the end of the second. I flipped in a bush and caught a 2.5 pounder, lost a 4-pounder, and then I went to the next dock and caught a 2.11 and got myself up into like 7th or 8th place. And I decided to make the change then. Like, I felt like the fish were changing. The water temp was coming up quickly. The water was rising. Things were warming up. Those fish were super shallow. And that's when I ventured into the back of Drowning Creek, and I caught a 313, and then I caught the fish of a lifetime, that 6.3 behind the dock with 2 cables on 15-pound 100% Berkeley fluorocarbon. Got that fish to swim under my boat somehow, so I could almost hand line it in. It was the you know, it was just meant to be. It was so cool, and that's when the momentum train started, right then.
Well, let's talk about that 6.3 that you caught there, because the most impressive part of that catch was the gunnel walk that you did from the front of the deck to the back of the boat. I don't know if you've even seen that or not, but that was spectacular.
Oh my Lord, guys, what a bass. Good Lord. And I don't know how to get anywhere with her. Line here, baby. All right, go be gentle. Are you kidding me? Just kidding, I got her! Woo! Are you kidding me? Look at this tank!
Do you do that a lot? What kind of shoes do you wear?
Yeah, I've watched that 100 times, probably, me walking down from the front deck to the back of that boat to get that fish out. And I can only say it was, I'd rather be lucky than good and have God on my side, because that was the only reason I got that thing in.
Well, that was some serious balance beam work. Did you have any gymnastics training?
Well, my daughter's, my Amberly, my 12-year-old, she's big into gymnastics. So maybe that's where I got it from. I've had some close calls between stumps and trees and whatnot. So, you know, my balance isn't great the older I'm getting, but I dang sure needed every bit of it there, and it couldn't have worked out any better.
And then, of course, there was that final fish with about under 4 minutes to go, 3 minutes or something like that, and you caught it. What, did you see 2 on that scale? Because you had to weigh it 3 times.
Yep. So I caught one just before. I caught 2 more before that. Got myself close, 6 ounces from the lead, and I told myself, we're not doing this again. I've been down that road before. I've been second in the Bassmaster Classic, second in the Bass Pro Tour by 2 ounces, and I told myself, we're not going down that road again. I pitched that jig up under the dock, and The fish bit it. When I flipped that fish in the boat, I knew it was a 2-pounder. So yeah, I weighed it once, it was 115. I weighed it twice, it was 115. And on the third and final reweigh, the fish actually went 2-1 and then it fell to 2 pounds. I've done the interview 1,000 times. I've watched it 1,000 times, relived it 100 times, and I'm doing it again right now. I don't know to this day why it went to 2 pounds, but it was my time to win and it was meant to be.
That was a great made for TV moment. I got to tell you right there. So listen, to me, that this tournament represented a classic spring migration event. These, even like I said earlier in that last day, it seemed like the fish that people were catching were off the bank, but that third period, everything changed. And I think you were one of the few guys that really moved to the bank. What was the thing that made you decide to do that?
I think it was instinct to make a move to the bank. Something had changed. They were slapping at my fritz side a little bit, and I've been down this road before where I've seen them do that, and they're making a push. And you know, those guys, you're right, they were hung up on that active target forward facing sonar with their jerk baits. They were not going to come off of that because it had worked for them all week. And I knew I needed to do something different. I was too far back, which might have been a good thing. I was too far back in the pack. I had to do something different, and picking up that jig was the best thing in the world. I mean, the fritz side 5 got me to where I needed to get. And just to make a little change at the end there, when that water temp finally got up past 52 degrees, those fish made a big push to the bank in that last 45 minutes. And that was the difference in the REDCREST for sure.
I said every year on every lake, there is that week when fish do exactly what they did in this tournament, right?
Absolutely. And they were doing it that day. Like
yes.
It had just started, and the next day was pretty warm again. So they were probably starting to move again. And then when it gets cold, they'll pull back out. But the water rising, the water was getting warmer. Those fish had enough of sitting out on that rock and getting on the brush piles where the jerk baits were. They were making a charge. Like Michael Neal said in his interview, the bait just left him, or the bait left and the fish did too. So everything was migrating. The days were getting longer. Spring was in the air, and those fish were sensing it. And my Phoenix and Yamaha were there for the pickings, man, and it could not have worked out any sweeter.
It certainly did. Hey, so for me, this outdoor expo was the first time being back in a sports show environment. It was so good to be back in that. Did you get a chance to walk that floor at all?
I did. No, I didn't get. Yeah, the only time I walked the floor is when they took me out back and took me to my my interview in the ending there. But the expo was phenomenal. This was a big step for Major League Fishing. Yeah. We really needed the REDCREST to go well. We needed an expo. The limo ride was absolutely phenomenal to come out. I felt like a rock star in front of the paparazzi when I got out of that thing. But kudos to Major League. They needed to hit a home run, and I think they got a grand slam. And you know, it couldn't have worked out any better. I'm so glad to be your REDCREST champion, and just humbled and honored to be able to do all this. I'm, you know, we all live for something like this, and I cherish every minute of it. I promise.
It's a great story. Hey, looking at your list of sponsors, I know who Guy Harvey is. Guy Harvey is a West Coast guy like myself, but what is Guy Harvey Camp Mac?
So Camp Mac is actually a part of, or Guy Harvey's actually, they licensed a part of Camp Mac. You know, there's certain clothes down there that you can only get at Camp Mac. That's where I run the Bobby Lane Cup, which is my big kids event every year. And Guy Harvey kind of partnered up with Camp Mac to help them clean it up and get some of the stuff nicer. I mean, in the rooms, it's all Guy Harvey photos, and in the stores, it's, you know, strictly airboat kind of bass fishing, gators and specks and bass and stuff like that on the shirts. It's a really cool sponsorship. I'm glad to have them, and they've been a joy to work with.
Well, that's good. I saw that on your list, and I needed to ask that question because we got a lot of Guy Harvey influence on the West Coast, and I was wondering what was going on with that. Well, hey, listen, Bobby, thanks for being with us today. Thanks for taking some time out from your day off on Heavy Hitters. Best of luck through the rest of this tournament, and who knows, maybe we'll be talking again real soon about your win at Heavy Hitters.
Man, I'm telling you, I had a great day yesterday. The fish did exactly what I wanted them to. A few side fish, a few on a swim jig. The new Berkeley swim jig is awesome, man. If you need it, check. If you need a swim jig in your toss, try that Berkeley swim jig. You're going to love the hook on it. And then I caught one of my favorite ways to catch them is frogging. I lost one on a frog, or two on a frog, and was a little disappointed, but ended up into the day catching some nice ones on that frog. It's getting warmer out here. Maybe it'll get better. But I'm stoked about tomorrow, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And yes, I do look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, thanks a lot. Take care.
Yes, sir.